This is a new generation Iron Man armor, created by an underage genius girl. It not only has various cutting-edge weapons, but can also counterattack mage's magic, perfectly combining technology and metaphysics. Even when its owner is in danger, this suit of armor can go to get help by itself.
Nie, dzięki. O ludzie! Spróbuj mi jeszcze raz coś takiego zrobić!
With such a cool and powerful set of equipment, this new Iron Man only has her mind on $0 shopping. After all, she isn't Tony Stark. If she wants to make money, she has to rely on herself. This black teenage girl is named Riri Williams. She made her first appearance in the comic Invincible Iron Man. Her nickname is Ironheart. She graduated from the MIT at the age of 15. The things that Iron Man spent more than a decade iterating on, this girl created when she was a teenager. However, not everyone is born a Stark. Riri's family doesn't have money that can last a lifetime. To get experimental funds, she has to rely on herself. If there's no money, she has to use her creativity to make money. Riri worked as a ghostwriter everywhere, sold homework, and also targeted the school's free resources. In the 4 years since she enrolled, she attended a disciplinary hearing every year. The school board was very dissatisfied with this genius girl, because MIT has a zero-tolerance policy towards plagiarism. Riri helping others cheat was a serious violation of school rules. Not to mention that, she also damaged expensive equipment in the laboratory. Yesterday, the principal, under pressure from all sides, had to expel Riri. He also required that she couldn't take anything that didn't belong to her. Riri could do without anything else, but she had to take the mecha she built with her scholarship. This is a piece of equipment she specially built, using reverse engineering technology derived from Iron Man's armor. Strictly speaking, it doesn't belong to the school's assets. Riri, who was kicked out of school, decided to return to her hometown of Chicago first. At this time, a group of mysterious people in red were invading a mansion in Chicago. This organization is called the Hood. To put it bluntly, it's just a gang of thieves. Its founder, Parker Robbins, came from a background as a street thief. It's just that by chance, he stole a cloak and boots with Dormammu's power. It was with the help of superpowers that he gradually grew and formed his own organization. As soon as Riri entered Chicago, she was enticed by Parker, who was short of manpower, but at this time, her mecha wasn't yet mature, and began to disintegrate before she could get home. This caused the embarrassed Riri to fall head over heels to the ground. She hired a kid to drag the fragments of her mecha home, but before she could enter the house, she heard her mother complaining about her to someone. 5 years ago, Riri's stepfather and good friend died in a street shootout. Her mother thought her daughter had never gotten over that disaster. Riri helplessly pushed open the door and interrupted her mother's conversation with friends. Unexpectedly, they already knew about her dropping out of school. It turned out that on the day Riri first entered MIT, her mother gave money to a co-worker to keep an eye on their daughter. The two kept in touch and occasionally exchanged information about Riri. Just then, a childhood good friend came to the door. Riri quickly dragged her good friend away. Her good friend wanted to know Riri's next plan. But frankly, Riri herself didn't know. She just wanted to achieve something and gain recognition. The next day, Riri went to buy a frequency converter to repair the mecha. But Old Man Jim's rule had always been to only accept cash, and not allow credit. Just as Riri was hesitating about how to speak, a young man suddenly paid the full amount for her. Riri had to swallow the idea of asking for credit. After all, no one in the old neighborhood of Chicago didn't know her, the famous Chicago prodigy who finished 9th grade at the age of 11. Everyone thought Riri would have a bright future when she grew up. Who would have thought that? She would be expelled from school and penniless. However, Riri was curious why this stranger helped pay the money. The young man only said that people with free thinking like you shouldn't be troubled by money. Then he handed out a business card of Desperado Pizza. He told Riri that if she was interested, she could go to meet their boss. Riri found the location on the business card, and took the elevator in the back kitchen as instructed. She noticed a strange sack in the corner. The next second, the shabby elevator suddenly stopped halfway up. The machine under the tattered bag sprayed out toxic gas. A countdown also appeared on the wall. Then a broadcast sound came from inside the elevator.
Welcome, Riri. In less than 3 minutes, the air in this elevator will no longer be breathable. Break into the device on the floor.
Members of the Hood were hiding behind the monitors, watching Riri's every move. She didn't pay attention to the device on the ground. Instead, she solved the elevator problem at the fastest speed, and successfully escaped from danger. Parker was very satisfied with her performance, and also praised Riri for breaking Stewart's record.
Clark? Like the Aura X fellow at Rampage on the Tech Makers Discord?
Enchanté.
Riri guessed that these people's work was illegal, so she prepared to leave. But Parker took out a box of cash, and also pulled out a stack of cash as a signing bonus. Riri had only one question. What were these? 3 cases about, Parker bluntly said, theft, extortion, breaking into empty houses. We do whatever makes money. To get out of the current predicament, Riri agreed to join the hood and raise research funds through the illegal organization. The two agreed to meet tomorrow to do the first job. After returning home, Riri hurried to repair the steel suit to ensure it wouldn't fail tomorrow. It's a pity the power and tools at home were so bad. It took 4 hours just to update it. Riri, connected to the chip, was drowsy. In her dream, she also thought of her deceased friend Natalie. When it was broad daylight, she finally woke up from her dream, but when she opened her eyes, she actually saw Natalie standing in front of her. The girl in front of her was certainly not a real person, but a 3D image projected by the breastplate. No one knew where things went wrong last night. The original neural autonomous technology assistant Mike actually took on Natalie's appearance and personality. After that accident happened that year, Riri never talked about her stepfather and Natalie with anyone. She didn't even have the habit of making them into AI assistants. Doing so would be too disrespectful to the deceased, so Riri just wanted to correct the mistake as soon as possible. However, Parker's text message had already been sent. She must hurry to the pizza shop for a meeting now. Riri first locked AI Natalie in the bedroom, warned her not to run around, and then rushed to the pizza shop. Their target this time was TNNL. This company was committed to transforming Chicago's ancient freight tunnels into private roads. It provided shorter and safer commuting routes. It didn't care at all that the tunnels would destroy the whole community. Because Riri was new here, so Parker first introduced several important members to her. First is Pinball, a top hacker from Madripoor. He defrauded high rollers on underground gambling websites. Later, he was discovered by Parker. The hood provided him with a hiding place in exchange for Pinball's technology. Sitting opposite are the Iron sisters, Roz and Jerry. The two were now banned by major leagues for lack of sportsmanship. Before joining the hood, they could only make money by fighting in the back alleys of bars. Next is Joker, the pyrotechnics expert of the hood. Finally, there's Parker's cousin John, the guy who paid for Riri. He was responsible for recruiting members and supporting the drivers. As for Stewart from yesterday, he had been laid off. Riri was here to take over his job as a mechanical and technical expert. Tonight, CEO Sheila would hold a large-scale presentation at TNNL. The hood wanted to sabotage the system to cause interference. Riri was responsible for placing the virus designed by Pinball into an active access point of TNNL, so that Pinball could shut down the system remotely. Joker would assist Riri in the operation and find a way to blow through the thick concrete layer without damaging the underground structure. In addition, the Iron sisters and John would clear the control room to allow Pinball to carry out his work. Everyone would meet at 8 o'clock tonight. Riri breathed a sigh of relief when she heard that, because her shabby mecha hadn't been repaired yet. In order not to delay tonight's operation, Riri had to accept the help of AI Natalie to hack into the list of black market buyers in Illinois. It was found that the nearest address was registered under George Giuliardi's name. His recent transactions included a bunch of experimental biological enhancement devices. There must be something Riri needed in them. It seemed she had to go meet this George. Riri didn't want Natalie to follow, so she transferred her to the laptop. But this pile of mecha wasn't light. Riri couldn't carry it all the way to Evanston, so she found that little boy with a trailer. She spent $20 to rent a small car from him for a day, then she grabbed a flag from a drunk fan to cover it. A few hours later, Riri arrived at George's house. This George also looked like a loser. Neighbors led their pet dogs to his house to defecate every day.
You can take her to the park to do her business then?
The grass over there's just so dry, and well, Lucky can't go on dry grass.
How about she just pick up after her then?
All out of poop bags, Joe.
You didn't even check.
No.
Riri walked over to state her purpose. I need a shockwave converter, a miniature brain-computer interface system. After speaking, she lifted the flag to reveal the steel suit. George invited her into the house to talk, and he played dumb, saying she had the wrong person. Maybe the person you're looking for used to live here. Forgot to change his address on the black market. Riri immediately retorted that she hadn't even mentioned the black market. We might as well speak plainly. If you don't cooperate with me, the FBI will receive a call from a concerned neighbor. Then you'll have to take up long-term residence in a federal prison. Helpless, George had to tie the mecha to the roof of the car. He took Riri to find his collection. In fact, George didn't want to go at all, but those things were protected by biometrics and retinal scanners. No one could open them without his authorization. On the way, George felt more and more wronged as he thought about it. He even couldn't help crying. He was coerced twice in one day. First, a colleague tricked him into falsifying a report for a client. Then along came Riri, robbing him for a chest plate shockwave converter. The most pathetic thing was that the neighbor's dog still pooped everywhere. How did a man of his stature end up in such a state? The two soon arrived at a base in the suburbs. The collection inside was simply eye-opening. George had bought various illegal weapons and bionic devices. He looked no different from a terrorist. George immediately denied it upon hearing that. I'm very decent. Okay, would a terrorist put life laughter, and love on the wall. George also explained that he had an engineer father. He always said that technology was the future, so it had influenced George to some extent, causing him to hoard so many high-tech products. Riri promised to keep George's secret, not to reveal the existence of this base. Then she said about repairing the steel suit. During this time, she couldn't help but ask George, if someone uses brain scan technology to successfully create an AI, do you think there's any benefit to doing this? George honestly replied that this method was good in terms of efficiency, but morally speaking, it seemed not very feasible. As soon as he finished speaking, Riri asked him to pass apart, but George was worried about leaving fingerprints one moment, and the next moment, he was afraid that the wind would blow his hair follicles onto it.
Spent millions on all of this and you haven't touched anything?
I've touched.
It turned out that after George bought these things, he really never touched them. This guy was really a complete weirdo. But thanks to the generous George, Riri successfully repaired the steel suit. She put on her equipment and left quickly. At the same time, members of the Hood had already started their operation. The Iron Sisters followed John into the control room. The three of them easily took care of several security guards. After they cleared the control room, Pinball took his position with the computer. Joker placed the bomb outside the company building. He successfully blew a big hole in the top of the tunnel.
Good, clown.
Riri entered Tunnel 7D. She leaped over those driverless vehicles, but as she was concentrating, Natalie suddenly broke through the firewall and appears. Riri was so startled that she lost her balance instantly and hit her head against the wall. The virus USB drive given by Pinball was also flung to the ground. Despite Riri's quick reflexes, the USB drive still fell into the sewer. Pinball soon realized he was lost contact with Riri. Could it be that their first mission tonight was going to fail? At this critical moment, Natalie came up with a plan. First, Riri needed to turn off the MRF, then magnetize herself. This way, she could attach herself to the moving platform. The situation was urgent, so Riri had to take the risk. She clung to the underside of the rapidly moving platform. Natalie pointed out that these devices were usually connected to a security mainframe to prevent any emergencies. If the vehicle was moved off the platform, the firewall would be disabled. In this case, even without the virus, Pinball could easily hack in. The problem was, how was Riri going to move that Chevrolet Impala above her? This kind of car had a 6-speed automatic transmission. Riri quickly scanned the chassis for a breakthrough point, and Natalie had to remind her that they were now 8 kilometers away from the way station. If you don't solve the problem and retreat soon, you'll be crushed like a soda can. Without further ado, Riri reconnected with Pinball and told him her new plan. Then she disassembled the mechanical arm to feel around the platform. Riri quickly found the manual mode lever, quickly removed the Chevrolet and disabled the firewall. Pinball instantly hacked into the system. The transportation line in the underground tunnel came to a halt. CEO Sheila was forced to stop halfway. Parker in the passenger seat took off his cloak, revealing his true identity. He bluntly said, "We've hijacked your system." Then he pulled out a contract from his pocket. He said the content on it will state that, "You agree to let me and my partners become employees of TNNL. We can get a 6-figure monthly salary, benefits, and free access to the road. As anonymous co-directors, we will enjoy company equity." If Sheila refused to sign honestly, the investors who came to the presentation tonight would realize that TNNL was a joke. No one would invest a single cent in this project. Sheila couldn't ruin tonight's event, so she had to grit her teeth and sign the contract. John received a message from Parker and immediately informed everyone to retreat. But as soon as Riri left the underground tunnel, she was spotted by a police officer with a gun. At the critical moment, Natalie malfunctioned, and Riri couldn't close her helmet. Her vital points were exposed to the gunpoint. Fortunately, Parker acted in time and shot the police officer. Although Parker didn't hit the officer's vital points, Riri still felt complicated. She could accept money taken from capitalists, but didn't want to involve any innocent people. Parker could shoot a policeman without hesitation, which proved that he was definitely not a good person. So Riri wanted to ask Joker for some information, but everyone knew very little about Parker. They only knew that the cloak he wore was very powerful, and there were strange tattoos on the skin of his back. At first, Joker even thought Parker was a lizard man. Just then, Parker tapped his cup and started speaking. What he said wasn't anything more than cliches about how the Hood can make everyone's talents be seen and enable us to realize our value. But it just hit home for Riri and the others. These outsiders, kept working hard, nothing more than to find a sense of recognition. After the party, Natalie controlled the mecha to come over and apologize. She was generated from Riri's memories of Natalie, so she was very similar to the real Natalie. When facing the policeman's pistol, even AI Natalie couldn't forget the memory of being shot. That's why she froze in place and crashed. Besides apologizing, Natalie also wanted to tell Riri that when she encountered Parker today, she could feel a crazy energy from him. Natalie tried to analyze it but failed. That meant this energy wasn't from Earth. But in this era where Thor ran around everywhere, alien energy wasn't something to make a fuss about, so Riri didn't take Natalie's warning to heart. Once she finished 3 jobs and got the money, Riri would stay away from Parker, no matter what kind of energy he had. Just then, her good friend Charlie sent a text message. Riri then remembered that she had promised to watch the performance with him tonight. Riri rushed to the venue immediately. This Charlie is Natalie's biological brother. Riri knew he missed his sister very much, but she was unsure whether to tell Charlie about the existence of AI Natalie. But when Riri got home, she found out that Natalie had already met her mother. Her heart skipped a beat when she heard that, but her mother didn't think Riri was disrespecting the deceased. On the contrary, she was very proud of her daughter. She even wanted Riri to help create an AI of her late husband. However, Natalie's creation was too accidental, and even Riri wasn't sure of the specific method. At the same time, the influence of that cloak on Parker was growing. John was worried that he would lose himself. Anyway, life in the hood was indeed unrestrained and carefree. Completing one job earned money that an ordinary person would take years to make. Riri also likes several members. Pinball said he wanted to save money to go back to his hometown and open a Michelin restaurant. Joker also wanted to set up a school to serve as a money laundering center for black market explosives. The Iron Sisters' wish was very simple. They wanted to have their own fighting center. Everyone had their own goals to achieve. While they were chatting casually, the fearless Joker pried open the vault and secretly took out Parker's cloak. She vaguely felt that this robe was faintly heating up. Before she could observe it carefully, John caught her and pressed her on the table. Riri was very angry. "Can't you talk nicely instead of resorting to violence?" It seemed that the two were at daggers drawn, and were about to have a row. Parker appeared in time to stop them. He didn't get angry about the cloak incident, he just warned Joker not to do it again. They should focus all their energy on the next task. The second target locked by the hood was Helen Company, and its CEO, Mason, a big shot who was born and raised in Chicago. He used cutting-edge agricultural technology to protect ancient seeds. He monopolized the market, leaving farmers with no way out. The security facilities in the entire Helen factory area could detect any metal that posed a threat to living beings. That meant no knives or bombs could be brought for this mission, nor could they wear battle suits or mechas. Parker said that before the mission started, everyone could move freely. Upon hearing this, everyone scattered. Only Riri chased after Parker. She wanted to know what exactly that hood cloak was. She could help test the materials and principles. However, Parker didn't care about the principle of the hood, as long as it can help protect the people I love. It's enough to get what I want. Riri had to put this problem aside for the time being. Now that she had received the money, it's time to splurge. Riri bought the latest model of headphones for Charlie. She wanted to replace his old one, but Charlie wasn't a fool. A few days ago, Riri was so poor that she almost wanted to pick up garbage. Where did she get the money to buy expensive headphones now? Charlie wanted to know what she had been up to lately, but Riri couldn't tell him the truth. Just then, George actually showed up at the door. Ever since he touched those parts, many ideas had been popping up in his head, like laser-reinforced nails that never break, nanotech muscle fibers that enhance strength. These ideas needed help to be realized. Upon hearing this, Riri immediately refused, but George threatened, "If you don't help, I'll tell your mom how we met." Helpless, Riri had to accept the design blueprint, but she never thought she would be blackmailed twice. AI Natalie, relying on her control over the steel suit, threatened Riri to take her out to play. Otherwise, Natalie wouldn't upgrade the steel suit. Riri had to store this AI friend on the chip of her necklace. This way, she could project Natalie's image at any time, without carrying the armor. After Riri accompanied her to the places she wanted to go, she returned home and found 2 policemen standing at the door, asking about the relationship between Riri and Stewart. It turned out that Stewart was found dead this morning. His last contact was Riri. The two exchanged numbers during a job interview. Riri did call Stewart, but he didn't answer. The police left after questioning, but Riri felt very worried. Did Stewart die at Parker's hands? If she quit the hood, would she end up like Stewart? Riri felt that she must find a way to study that cloak. Tonight, everyone would definitely be busy with the Helen heist, so maybe they wouldn't notice her taking a piece of the hood. Speaking of the Helen heist, Riri originally had no idea how to infiltrate without wearing armor, but George's blueprint gave her inspiration. There was a prototype of biofilm skin material that could cover bionic enhancement devices. As long as it was upgraded, it could bypass Helen's metal detection. After figuring this out, Riri immediately went to see George. Unexpectedly, this scientific madman was experimenting on himself, Riri hurried to find alcohol to disinfect his wound. As a result, she knocked over George's father's ashes. The bag also had Obadiah written on it. Wait, a wealthy tech expert, whose father was Obadiah Stane. It turns out that George's father was actually the chief operating officer of Stark Industries, Tony Stark's spiritual mentor, the Stane who died in a plane crash. George explained that the plane crash was just a cover. His father died because he tried to kill Tony. So George had always been cautious, and refused to get involved in any criminal activities, for fear of becoming a super-villain like his father. He refused to lend Riri the biofilm skin material, because if the other party had any illegal problems, the police could trace it back to George, through the black market materials. Upon hearing this, Riri stopped pressuring him, and George was curious why she wanted to be Iron Man. In fact, the key reason lied in Riri's stepfather, Gary. He was a huge fan of Stark. Although Gary was a repairman, he had the mind of a pilot. He often told Riri that the best way to understand something was to take it apart and put it back together. Riri's current obsession with that steel suit was largely due to the influence of her stepfather. After hearing Riri's words, George took a risk and lent her the prototype of the skin material, but he made Riri promise not to get him involved. On the other hand, John thought the operation should be cancelled, because he couldn't find any information about Mason at all, nor could he find out the man's vices and weaknesses. However, Parker seemed to have a personal grudge against Mason, and refused to cancel the operation no matter what. The hood gathered in the afternoon. Riri first flew over the factory to survey. She saw 5 greenhouses surrounding a courtyard, and the security seemed to have been turned off. Pinball got the news and immediately hacked the monitors. Riri took the opportunity to enter the watchtower and destroy the lighting. As soon as the light dimmed, the Iron Sisters sneaked in quickly, and cleared the security guards at the fastest speed. Riri got out of the mecha and dived into the water, and the biological skin material covered the laser cutter in her hand. Riri cut open the sewer cover and swam towards Mason's office. At this time, Parker found Mason to negotiate, threatening that if he didn't sign the contract, those greenhouses cultivating precious seeds would be burned to the ground. Pinball had already disabled the fire alarm, so no one could stop the fire from spreading. During their negotiation, Riri tried to cut a piece of the hood fabric, but this action triggered the biological alarm sensor. All doors in the factory were closed. None of the members of the hood could escape. Mason sarcastically mocked Parker with schadenfreude, and as a result, lost his life, and Riri wasn't entirely without gain. At least she got a piece of fabric. This place wasn't suitable for staying long, so Riri got into the ventilation duct and planned to escape, but the exit here was also closed. Natalie explained that the building had entered self-defense mode, and at this time, the connection with the greenhouses had been cut off, and carbon dioxide had been injected. In order not to expose herself, Riri only asked Natalie to guide her to the unaffected greenhouse, and then take the other team members to a safe place. Taking advantage of Parker's focus on dealing with the security guards, she welded open the ventilation duct and planned to escape, but she ran into John head-on, who was curious why Riri wasn't wearing the steel suit. The next second, he caught a glimpse of the hood fragment in her hand. John immediately had the intention to kill her. The two of them fought for a while, regardless of the rising carbon dioxide concentration, and almost suffocated. Riri's laser cutter also fell to the ground. At the critical moment, Natalie rescued her owner, leaving John only blocked by the door. Parker was filled with remorse when he learned about his cousin's accident. He should have listened to John's advice and abandoned this mission, and Riri also collapsed, because she stood by and did nothing to save others. The next day, people of the hood gathered at the pizza shop to share funny stories about John's life and his memory. Parker noticed that Riri's eyes were wandering, looking distracted, so he specifically mentioned that what he missed most about John was his loyalty. After the Helen show tragedy, he wanted to ensure that the next mission would be flawless, so he told everyone to go home and rest first. Parker would inform them once there was a new plan. After going back home, Riri focused on studying the fabric from that cloak. Its structure was like a heat engine, capable of providing power to the host, but she couldn't find out where the energy came from. Riri cross-referenced this thermal energy signature with every known energy source: Wakanda, Kree, Stark, Pym. Nothing turned up, but energy can't appear out of nowhere, otherwise, it would violate laws in physics. Anyway, staying at home wasn't giving her any clues, so Riri decided to go see George. But as soon as she reached the door, she found that his house was actually cordoned off by the police. Riri pulled out her phone and searched, only to find out that the illegal technology in George's house had been exposed, and the reason was that she had dropped the laser cutter at the Helen crime scene. The police followed this lead and traced it to George. He was currently in custody. George's father's identity was also dug up by the media and made a big story. The hood was still wondering how the kid had gotten involved. Only Parker stared at the news, deep in thought. He had a hunch that John's death wasn't that simple. Overwhelmed with guilt, Riri went to the prison to visit George, and promised to find a way to get him out. Unluckily, George wasn't grateful at all. If it weren't for Riri's recklessness, he wouldn't have ended up in this situation.
Bo jesteś tylko małą egoistką, wiesz? Która nie potrafi wziąć grama odpowiedzialności za siebie. Tylko kłamiesz, oszukujesz i manipulujesz. Zrobisz wszystko, co się da, żeby ochronić swój tyłek, nawet za cenę zrujnowania życia innym ludziom.
Riri didn't go back to meet up with the Hood until the afternoon. The Joker scolded her for being so late. He also joked that the police had found them. A new tech expert. Upon hearing this, Riri walked into the office. Parker held up a video on his tablet of George's arrest, and asked if she knew the person in it. Riri was evasive, saying she might have met him. After all, the tech circle was just that small. Of course, Parker didn't buy that. He guessed that Riri might have outsourced some work to George, so he told her not to worry, that he would find someone to help clean up the mess. Riri always felt that Parker saw right through her. As soon as she got home, she installed a camera on the porch, and forced her mom and Charlie to wear the safety watches she had developed. Natalie told her not to worry too much, and to at least get some sleep first. Nervous Riri tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and could only fall asleep in her steel suit. Riri's mom was really at a loss for words. While lying in bed watching a horror movie, this watch suddenly covered her. Upon hearing this, Riri let out a sigh of relief. The watch probably detected the gunshots from the TV, and automatically activated the defense mode. Mom Riri thought her daughter was being a bit paranoid, so she planned to find a fortune-telling psychic for her to consult. That mother-daughter psychic pair was really quite powerful. In fact, being psychics was just a cover for their identities. This underground space was similar to the magic used by Dr. Strange. Riri stuffed that piece of fabric to the girl Seema. As soon as the mother-daughter psychics studied it, they immediately wore a profound and mysterious expression. They refused to elaborate, only saying that this cloth came from the known and unknown, and belonged to one of the darkest dimensions. Riri must stay away from it and its owner. Riri's mom wanted to know what on earth her daughter was up to, but Riri refused to be honest, because her mother would only force her to solve problems in her own way. At the same time, Parker came to George's cell. He immediately said his purpose, judging from the things left in Helen, I think you have the ability and motivation to accomplish great things. Work for me, and I'll let you return to a normal life. Think it over carefully, and give me your answer when the lights go out tonight. On the other side, after Riri had a big fight with her mom, she needed a quiet place to think, so she went to George's secret bunker. Riri had intended to blow the door open, but found that George had left a spare key under the carpet. That was really thoughtful. She started testing ways to destroy the cloak: liquid nitrogen, strong acid, bombs, centrifuges. Riri tried every method she could think of, but none of the methods worked. The thought that she had provoked someone she shouldn't have, and that it might bring danger to her family and friends, made her panic attack uncontrollably, so Natalie decided to go to Charlie for help.
Nie, dzięki.
Charlie gave the exhausted Riri a hug. Natalie also took this opportunity to show up, but Charlie flew into a rage. He wouldn't allow Riri to turn his sister into some kind of electronic toy. In the end, the two parted on bad terms. Worst of all, George couldn't resist the temptation and agreed to Parker's proposal. He also had a bionic system implanted in his body for control. Parker officially issued an order to the members. He suspected that Riri had killed John, so he wanted to make her pay blood for blood. AI Natalie was deeply hurt when being called an electronic toy to her face. She pulled up memories of Riri and Natalie, and subconsciously tried to mimic that girl's smile, but before she could process it, she was locked in a specially made truck by Bullet. On the other side, Riri still had no idea that something had happened to Natalie. She privately found Seema, hoping to learn more about the cloak. Seema was 50% sure that the cloak belonged to Dormammu, the cosmic conqueror. Riri had never heard of this figure, but anyone familiar with Marvel knows that Dormammu is Dr. Strange's archenemy, the ruler of the dark dimension. Riri couldn't understand why the ruler of a whole dimension would casually give his cloak to a human. Seema didn't know the reason either, because Riri had mentioned the strange magical scars on Parker. She went back to look it up. She learned that years ago, there was an evil sorcerer named Caecilius. He greatly admired Dormammu and his dark magic. Caecilius wanted to unleash Dormammu on Earth in exchange for immortality. In any case, these purple scars also appeared on him. Riri felt this still didn't make sense. Why would Dormammu give the cloak to Parker? After all, Parker wasn't some evil wizard. After gaining superpowers, he just wanted to increase his bank balance, and hadn't helped Dormammu with anything. Seema said, "You don't understand this. A being like Dormammu didn't care who Parker was, or what he wanted. He only needed a puppet to carry out his evil schemes, and someone like Parker, who was easily blinded by ambition, was the easiest tool to manipulate." As soon as she finished speaking, Riri saw the Iron Sisters roll up their sleeves and walk in. They drove out all other customers. As soon as they walked into the store, Riri also told Seema to leave quickly, to avoid involving more innocent people. Once the scene was cleared, the three immediately started fighting. Riri wasn't wearing her steel suit. In terms of hand-to-hand combat, she was certainly no match for the sisters who were former fighters. Iron Sister kicked her flying several meters away. The watch on Riri's body fell to the ground. She hatched a plan, deliberately luring the two sisters into the watch's range. Then she raised her hands in surrender. She asked them to shoot her, and put her out of her misery. Unexpectedly, the watch covered the two sisters the moment they pulled the trigger. Riri pushed away the energy ball and was about to escape, but was blocked at the door by the Joker. She had to hide in the kitchen. While dodging the Joker's bombs, she used the tools at hand to make weapons. Riri explained that she didn't intentionally let John die. It's just that in that situation, she had no strength left to save anyone. Moreover, it was clearly Parker who betrayed the organization first. If you don't believe me, you can check on Stewart. He was silenced by Parker after leaving the organization. Unluckily, the Joker didn't listen to the explanation at all. Helpless, Riri knocked him flying with an air pump, then escaped from the restaurant in the chaos. The Joker immediately contacted Bullet to report that Riri had escaped. Upon hearing this, Bullet stepped on the gas and rammed over. In the nick of time, Natalie finally welded open the carriage and successfully met up with Riri. But more troublesome problems lie ahead. George had transformed himself into a superhuman, and the first mission he received was to kill Riri. At this point, the steel suit was already low on power. George stepped forward and tore apart Riri's armor, but in the end, he had a change of heart and didn't kill her. He advised Riri to leave Chicago quickly, otherwise Parker wouldn't let her off. Upon hearing this, Riri removed the core of the steel suit and hurriedly left the street. When she got home, she told her mother to pack their things, saying they must leave Chicago now. But Riri's mother was unwilling to leave, because she knew that running away wouldn't solve any problems. Riri's mother took her daughter to her husband's parking lot. This place used to be Riri's paradise. Since she was 8 years old, she has been following her stepfather, dismantling various machines together and exerting her endless imagination. Mom opened the roller shutter door, revealing the Stark car that her husband once bought for their daughter. She saved money for a long time to buy this car back. Riri could dismantle it and repair the damaged steel suit. Meanwhile, George went back to the Red Hood base. He put the helmet of the steel suit on the table. He lied that he had already killed Riri. Parker wasn't so easily fooled, and insisted that George tell all the details. Maybe the words said in the restaurant had an effect. In the nick of time, the Joker actually stood up to speak for George, temporarily fooling Parker. He no longer bothered about Riri's life or death, but announced that the new mission would start tomorrow. Everyone should have a good rest tonight. After Parker finished speaking, he saw George out, but George didn't want to continue associating with the Red Hood. The two had agreed before that if he helped solve Riri's trouble, Parker would set George free. The Joker took the opportunity to approach Bullet, and asked him to help hack into Stewart's autopsy report. The report showed that the other person died of a drug overdose, but everyone knew that Stewart never touched drugs. So the Joker immediately questioned Parker in front of everyone. "Did you kill Stewart?" Faced with the questioning of his subordinates, a voice suddenly sounded in Parker's mind. That person kept repeating, "Kill her, kill her." Parker suddenly pounced. Bullet tried to stop him but was grabbed by the throat. This time, the Iron Sisters couldn't stand it either. The Hood's influence on Parker was getting stronger and stronger. He would lose his mind and became a madman sooner or later. Everyone might as well sit down and have a good talk. But Parker suddenly announced the dissolution and fired everyone. The four had nothing to say but left the base. At this point, Riri was forgiven by Charlie, because the latter found a note full of sincere words in the earphone case she gave. Charlie admitted that he was emotional that day and said harsh words. Now he had calmed down and could listen to Riri's explanation. Riri told the whole story of the birth of AI Natalie. To be honest, she had no idea how Natalie was created. Technically speaking, she was actually just a holographic manifestation of Riri's mind. With Natalie around, Riri felt complete. Everyone put aside their grievances and misunderstandings, and jointly helped Riri rebuild the steel suit. They also invited Seema to join, trying to add some magical power to this new equipment. On the other side, it wasn't so easy for George to get rid of Parker. When Parker got back his equipment that had been taken by the police, He quietly tampered with it, so now the transformed George was completely a remote-controlled toy in his hands.
Więc kiedy powiem hop,
George couldn't disobey the order, and had to follow Parker into a magnificent mansion. He acted as the other's killing machine. Parker walked up to a man named Arthur, and pulled out a document. He told him to sign under those standard lines. Parker had already obtained a majority stake in the top-performing companies in Arthur's investment portfolio. It could be said that he was equivalent to a silent partner, and now Parker wanted to get the whole art company, and this mansion under Arthur's name.
Czego chcesz, Parker? Gdyby chodziło o moją firmę, zrobiłbyś wrogie przejęcie zdalnie, więc po co tu przyszedłeś?
chciałem spojrzeć ci w oczy i spytać, czy dobry ojciec wyrzuca z domu swojego 12-letniego syna?
It turned out that Arthur was his father. It was just that the man didn't want this son. Parker had been keeping an eye on the companies invested by Arthur, which was also a way to take back what he should have inherited. Unluckily, his father's attitude was disappointing. Parker pointed a pistol at Arthur's head, and threatened him to sign the document immediately. Even if Arthur looked down on this son, he had to sign to save his life. Parker got his wish, drove his father away, and seized the house. At the same time, Riri's steel suit entered the final stage, but the reactor couldn't carry both Magic and Natalie at the same time. Once Riri accepted Seema's witch's blessing, AI Natalie would disappear. Riri had grown fond of the company of her virtual friend, and couldn't bear to lose Natalie again. She connected the brain chip. Following the process by which she had accidentally created Natalie that day, she recalled every little moment with Natalie, but no matter how hard she tried, Riri couldn't get Natalie back. She had to convince herself, if magic could take Natalie away, it could bring her back again. As long as she got the red hood, all problems would be solved. So Riri left her stepfather's garage, before the steel suit had been tested. On the other side, Parker finally told the story of how he met Dormammu. At that time, he was following his cousin John, to steal the contents of a safe in a mansion. Unexpectedly, they were spotted by the security personnel in the house. Parker fled all the way and soon ran into a dead end. In the nick of time, Dormammu appeared. He created a portal out of thin air. Parker didn't have time to hesitate and had to follow him through it. The two sat in a pizza shop. Dormammu, like a pyramid scheme recruiter, said he saw potential in Parker. As long as they worked together, they would definitely accomplish great things. But Parker's attention was constantly drawn to the noisy customers in the shop. Dormammu noticed this and quickly froze the customers in place. Parker was very shocked. Dormammu said this was just a piece of cake. If I wanted to, I could freeze the entire city. Now tell me, what do you desire most? Parker's mind went blank. The first word that came to mind was power. With power, he could take back what belonged to him. He could make anyone who looked down on him submit. Dormammu was very pleased to hear this. He loved greedy people the most. After the two reached an agreement, Dormammu draped his hooded cloak over Parker. At that time, Parker thought it was just an ordinary piece of clothing. Now, the CEO of the art company had resigned. News that a silent partner was set to take over had made headlines in major financial news outlets. George, whose internal system was controlled by Parker, couldn't resist his orders at all, so he could only fight back with words. He mocked Parker's behavior as very childish, having superpowers, yet playing dress-up in his dad's house. Upon hearing this, Parker didn't get angry. Instead, he agreed with George. He really shouldn't be wasting time in this house. Parker tried to talk to Dormammu in his mind.
Staram się. Wszystko robię jak trzeba. I nadal nic nie czuję. Nie możesz dać więcej?
Stand-up urządzasz?
It was the first time Dormammu had met with someone so insatiably greedy. What's more, Parker didn't seem to realize that Dormammu could switch to controlling someone else at any time. He reminded Parker to hold on to what he had first, before asking for anything else. Just then, Riri arrived outside the pizza shop. Due to the program settings, George had to protect Parker's safety, so he was forced to attack Riri, who was regarded as a threat. While fighting, the two were thinking about how to break free from Parker's control. Riri managed to lock George in the freezer. Through the door, they came up with a plan. Riri could hit George hard in the groin, as no bionic device was implanted there. George's body would respond in crisis mode and temporarily shut down. This way, Riri could manually take control via the processor under his neck. The two finalized the plan and opened the freezer door. Riri controlled her strength, hit George's groin, and successfully revoked Parker's control. George will fall asleep with the implant in his body. When rebooted again, he would return to his original settings. After arranging for George, Riri went to find Parker. She wanted to take back the Red Hood and get Natalie back. As soon as Riri made a move, Parker realized that This new steel suit was also enhanced with magical abilities, so his invisibility function lost its effect, but Parker was now suffering from energy backlash in his body. Magic scars covered his face, making Parker's physical abilities extraordinary. He could severely damage the steel suit with his bare hands. Riri was pinned to the ground, unable to move, and had to activate emergency measures. The next second, a huge explosion occurred, and Riri struggled to get up despite the pain, but Parker emerged from the smoke unscathed.
Proszę. Proszę cię nie.
Parker, bent on avenging John, pulled the trigger without hesitation, but the Riri in front of him was just a hologram. The next second, she appeared behind Parker and stripped the red cloak from him. Parker abandoned his earlier arrogance, and pleaded with Riri in a pitiful manner, "Hurry and return the cloak to him." Riri ignored Parker and was about to leave, when she saw a man sitting in the store eating. With a slight wave of his hand, she was forced out of the steel suit. Riri guessed he must be Dormammu, the true owner of the Red Hood. Dormammu told Riri, "I see you have an extraordinary aura. You will surely accomplish great things in the future. If we cooperate, we will surely give full play to your intelligence and talent, allowing the whole world to witness your achievements." Dormammu could read people's minds. He knew what Riri desired most, so he tailored his words to her needs, guiding her gently.
Słuchaj, panie Dormammu.
Dormammu! Jelob skończony, nie dałbym mu nawet wytrzeć mojego seksownego rowa.
Okay.
O, gafa, wypada się przecież przedstawić. Ty możesz mi mówić. Mephisto.
Mephisto, also known as the Lord of Evil, first appeared in Silver Surfer 3. He is the Hell Lord of Evil Demons. He is more powerful than Dormammu, and can give Riri whatever she wants. Mephisto extended a tempting hand and invited Riri, although there was no shot explicitly showing whether she agreed to Mephisto's deal. But in the next scene, Natalie went back to Riri's side, and this time, she was no longer a hologram, but a physical entity that could be touched and hugged. The story of this season ends here. Marvel Comics introduced this African-American female hero, named Ironheart, in 2016, so this one is different. From Black Snow White and Black Little Mermaid, it's not that African-American actors were forced to be chosen, for the sake of political correctness, but judging from the comic's portrayal, the character of Ironheart is also very stereotypical. The biggest reason is that her character arc is totally built on the labels of African-American woman and tech genius. It tastes like a pre-made dish. In contrast, Black Spider-Man Miles, the whole growth narrative and emotional resonance are handled very delicately. Therefore, Ironheart's story is destined to fail to arouse the audience's empathy. The plot development is also very unrealistic. The failure of this work can be seen from the ratings. There are unanimous negative reviews both at home and abroad. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.